You know what's kind of crazy when it comes to, uploading stuff here on the YT or even places like VENMO or Twitch or BitChute or wherever, you use, or whatever, I should say, outlet that you use to upload video content, is the fact that, well, we know when it comes to like YouTube and VMO and Dailymotion and all of them, and even BitChute, that in Twitch as well, that copyright is always going to be an issue. That no matter what content you try using in under fair use, it's going to be an issue. That you're always going to deal with, some studio coming out and saying, hey, you can have the video play without a problem. The only thing is you can't make money. Or, hey, you can have the video play, but you're going to share the revenue with us. Stuff like that. Or, hey, you don't have the rights to, to upload this video because you did not get permission to use the content. Either it's musical or, visual, and we're going to block you. There's always going to be, basically, looking at any of those scenarios, there's always going to be an issue when it comes to copyright. And again, it doesn't matter who your video uploading outlet is that you use most of the time. But what's unique about it, though, kind of like something that is kind of a silver lining in its uniqueness, is the fact that sometimes you could use songs and clips, if you will, from, from movies, shows, live action or animated, that basically will not trigger any response. It won't. And there are some fan vids, not a lot, but there are some fan vids, PMVs, AMVs, CMVs, because that's short for comic book music videos or comic music videos, that I've done throughout the past, 14 years. It's going to be 15 years, believe it or not. Actually, it has been. Yeah, it's going to be 15 years next year in June 2003. Well, not 2003, but June 2023, I should say. But there's been a variety of content that I've used, or that I've created, I should say, that uses songs that are copyrighted, uses visuals that are copyrighted, and I will usually get notified about that. Whether it's, from the fact that, I'm allowed to share revenue with whoever the original content provider is, or the fact that I can keep my video on there, I'm just not going to monetize, or the fact that my video is going to be blocked, from majority of the world because of, certain circumstances in certain regions of the world, like beliefs, like religious beliefs and stuff. But out of all that, there are, like I said, some fan vids, some AMVs, CMVs, PMVs that I've done that, because of the content that I use, either only one side of it or both sides of it, doesn't get flagged. It doesn't get copyrighted. It doesn't get, demonetized, and the monetization goes in the favor of somebody else. And I think the reason for that, is because some of the properties that people use, like I said, for example, some of the songs and content people use is from properties that, even though we know of their existence because we've listened to them, be played at the end of a movie or during a movie or during a show, or we've seen them visually with our own eyes as a series or even a movie, the reason you have certain properties out there that are accessible and not so, I guess you could say copyrighted and, limited to copyright, I should say, is due to the fact that there's a kind of, source material that is, from a musical or visual standpoint, pretty much public domain. Yeah, it's pretty much public domain. Even though you would think some of these things that we have would be noticeable by the people that run them, or the people that should, go out there and say, hey, this is our property and da 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 da. You know, that this is our property da da da, and you can't use it. These are the kind of things that, like I said, these are the kind of, like I said, they're the kind of properties or the kind of content that's out there that, you would think a studio that sees clips being, comprised together, complemented together, would say something more. You'd think a recording studio, record label, here's the song being played. You think they would, take action, but they don't, because these are the kind of materials that are, again, like I said, pretty much now in public domain. And, because of that, are fair game or fair use. I mean, for example, sorry about all that. But like I said, these are the kind of things that, are pretty much public domain and fair use. And it's all because I don't think, honestly, the labels or the studios that own the rights to them look at them very fondly. And that's why you see a lot of songs, that are used for any kind of purposes, in a content creator project, I should say, here on YouTube. That's where you see some of these songs that, you recognize, and you should be like wondering to yourself, man, I wonder, how much money he's losing from not being able to monetize his content, by using that song. And unbeknownst to you, he's not losing, unbeknownst to you, I should say, he or she is not losing any monetization, because the song that you would recognize, is fair use. And it's like nothing bad comes of it. The same with any visual representation from a show or a movie. You think the studio would take notice about that, but they don't. And because they don't take notice of it, it becomes fair. Like I said, it becomes fair use, and mainly it's because one could think either they just don't care, or they look down upon it and frown upon it, like, yeah, we know we own that, but it's one of the projects we could care less about, or something like that, or one of the IPs we can care less about, and that's it. And I bring this all up because, as you've noticed with two of my recent 8K upgrades, which I've used online-convert.com to do, as you've noticed with them, like the 8K upgrade of the mostly Water Woman, scenes where the villainous character Elsa Luxley or something like that becomes a slime girl woman, whatever you made of water, and all that for the episode. I compiled some clips originally, like over a decade or two ago, and now I've just 8K'd it, if you will. And just like the previous other two uploads, the original and the 720 upgrade, or the 720p upgrade, the 8K didn't have no issues whatsoever. And the same goes for, Always Come Back to You, which was a Sonic's comic fanvid that I did centering around the romantic relationships in the original Archie Sonic comic of Sonic and Sally and Bunny and Antoine. And again, just like the original posting back in 2008, because that's when I originally created, which is going to be, believe it or not, 14 years this week. In fact, in 2 days, it's going to be 14 years to the day since I originally created it. Now I've given it an 8K upgrade thanks to online-convert.com. And once again, just like the original post, no issues, no copyright issues on the song or anything. And I tend to believe, again, as I mentioned, going back to what I talked about earlier, it's because these properties, these IPs, the song, if you will, which is originally from the early 90s animated film by WB, the Nutcracker Prince, as well as, the compiling of scenes of the Elsa Luxley character being a slime girl, water woman, if you will, from the RoboCop Alpha Commando episode H2O. Um, you know, these kind of seem to me, these kind of seem to be, in my opinion, looked down on, with less importance. Like Amazon, they own MGM, right? They own a partnership, or they own most of MGM now. Thus, they own RoboCop Alpha Commando. They own the Lionhearts. But they look down on them like, it's no big deal. We don't care about those. And the same with Always Come Back to You. You think the people that, distributed the original soundtrack for Nutcracker Prince, the animated film back in the early 90s, whether it was the Warner label or not, would care about that song, even though it was a song produced by Kevin Gills, who's known for a lot of the songs that he produced for the Raccoon series and specials. You think they would take notice of it, but they didn't. They've never took notice of any of that, which again tells me that, if, a studio if a studio or a record label looks down upon, content in a certain way, then by looking down upon it, it makes it fair use. Like, you could use it as much as you want. They're not going to care. They're not going to care, despite them owning it. I mean, a good example again is, going back to fan vids that I did. I recently did a 4K re-uploading, because I think I'd already done it before, of right back where we started from, which was a cover version or an updated modern version of a classic 70s, late 70s, early 80s song that was done by the girl pop group, if you will, or R&B group, Cleopatra, for an extremely goofy movie. And I used that song originally to do a fan vid for the Lionhearts. And the original fan vid allowed me to, I think, have monetization no matter what. As well as the other ones as well, the 1080p upgrade and then the original 4K upgrade. Now this newer one that I did recently, the only change is I have to share monetization, and that's it. I share revenue, because it's looked at as because according to the copyrights on YouTube, it's looked at as a cover. Go figure. But the point I'm getting at, though, is despite, let's say right back where we're coming from, the Cleopatra version being looked at as a cover and thus sharing revenue because of that, you think Amazon, because they own MGM, they bought MGM, I believe, would look at the fact that, oh, wait a minute, Lionhearts is being, content from the Lionhearts cartoons being used. But they don't look at it that way. They don't. And I think it's the same with I'll Always Be With You. And the only thing that gets copyrighted out of that is, from the shows that I used the clips from. Like when I originally did I'll Always Be With You, which is originally from All Dogs Go to Heaven too. When I originally did that, It was for a fan vid based around Disney's Tailspin and Balloon Rebecca. And the only thing that got copyrighted, I should say, out of that was the content from the Tailspin visuals, and that's it. Same with My Little Pony. The song didn't get copyrighted. The visuals of My Little Pony did. Friendship is Magic, because I did it for a lot of the romantic couples in the show. Rarity Spike, Flash Century Twilight, if you want to look at it that way. Cadence, Shining Armor, you name it. And the visuals from the show that I used were the only ones being copyrighted, but not the song. You see, the more importance an IP has, whether it's a visual or audio representation or musical representation, the more importance it has, the more likely you will not be able to monetize your content with that material you use. The best you could probably get is sharing, but that's it. Because more than likely, your video or your content that you're using or that you're uploading that's using the visuals or the musical audios, if you will get copyrighted because of the importance that one studio shows whatever you're using. But when it comes to things like, let's say, the Lionhearts, when it comes to things like RoboCop Alpha Commando, when it comes to things like the song Always Come Back to You, and a few others that I've noticed, like I said, because there are some fan vids, CMVs, AMVs, PMVs that I've done throughout my near 15 years that, that are not affected whatsoever. Those are all pretty much in the category of not having that much importance. Like if they're not played on the radio or on some kind of streaming network in the store or something like that, why should we bother even protecting them? So when I look at it, it's all about the importance of the IP. If the IP isn't important to the people that own it, then it pretty much makes it fair game. But if it is, then you're either going to be looking at several options. Either your content's going to be blocked entirely, partially blocked, or you're going to not be able to monetize off of it, or you're going to share monetization. That's four things you got to look at, depending on the importance. Either content gets blocked worldwide, partially blocked, demonetization, or sharing monetization. And that's it. That's it. Because again, it all depends on the importance of the IP. Because if an IP isn't looked at with as much as importance as it should, by the people that own the rights to it, pretty much putting it, out there as public domain, even though they still own the rights, then you're pretty much opened up to make as much revenue off of that content that you utilize, the visuals or the audio musicalness, if you will, in said project. You're opening up yourself to make as much as you can. And that's pretty cool. And that's pretty cool to even think about and acknowledge. But yeah. If there's one lesson that, or not just one lesson, but one realization that I've come to, and I think a lot of us need to come to this, is the importance of an IP. If the IP isn't important to the people that own the rights to it, that's kind of making it a public domain IP, then hey, you're in the clear to monetize as much as you want. But if they do have some importance in some shape or form, and like I said, you're looking at four options. Either worldwide block, partial block, demonetization, or sharing monetization. And that's it. But yeah, it's surprising to know that you really got to think to yourself, okay, what can I use from an audio musical wise for, like, in the background of my project that I'm doing or whatever, that's not going to get me, copyrighted. or what can I use visually as a representation of what I'm talking about in my project that's not going to get me copyrighted. You got to look at it. You got to look at it in a way that's, basically saying this. If it's not that important, I'm good. If it is, again, I got those 4 options to look at. But what are you guys' thoughts? How do you feel about the fact that studios, it all depends on the importance of the IP. That will either allow you to make money, not make money, share revenue, get blocked, partially blocked. What are your thoughts on that? Comment down below, live chat during the premiere, like the video. I do apologize if I rambled a little bit here. I am tired. I got to get to bed so I can get to work tomorrow. But let me know what your thoughts are. Comment if you like. Love to hear from each and every one of you. Live chat during the premiere. Super chats and stickers are open and welcomed. Also check me out at my Teespring store and check me out at BW Rosas Discussions and all your favorite audio podcast locations except for Pandora. Also check me out at patreon.com/BWRosas to support me there with a $1, $3 tier. Also check me out at Venmo at Brian-Warmer-2 to support me financially there, and at Cash App at BWRosas98. Also, check me out at DeviantArt at BVW1979 and at VENMO at BWRosas for content you can't get anywhere else. But let me know what your guys' thoughts are down below and in the live chat during the premiere. And until then, guys, again, I do apologize if I sound a little slurry or ramblish. I am tired. It is late. I got to get to bed so I can get to work, get up for work tomorrow, I should say. But let me know what your thoughts are. And until then, I'm out.